this is all we've got. And I'm going to share a little bit of a story. So about a year ago, I was 38 years old. I'm getting a little emotional, which is funny. I was 38 years old, seemingly fit, healthy. I was running 30, 35 miles a week. I was probably 10 pounds lighter and probably about 30% leaner than I am right now. I was getting ready to start racing trail races again, which I was really excited about when I lived in Marin. And I felt a lump. And 2 weeks after that, I didn't really think about it. I got a call, and they were like, it's breast cancer. And I was like, what? This is crazy. Like, people have said, like, I'm the healthiest person that they know. I eat really clean. I, like, work out all the time. I haven't had a drink in, like, over 10 years. Don't do drugs. This is crazy. And only 5% of people who are underneath the age of 40 get diagnosed. And then I found out it was called triple negative cancer, which means, like, only 15% of all diagnoses get that. And that's basically mean that it's, like, the nastiest, most aggressive, fastest growing. This was literally a little over a year ago. I was going through testing. I came up to Stanford for a second opinion, and I called, obviously, Kate, one of my best friends, and Annie Pearl, who you guys know. And Annie and Kate both drove down on a Monday night to Palo Alto after work. And, we just talked about it. And at that point, we were waiting for tests. And I was like, distract me with stuff. Let's not talk about it anymore. And they just started talking about Glassdoor and, kind of the good old days, and also, like, all the stuff that's going on, and kind of, complaining about stuff. And I actually had to get up because I burst into tears, and I just said, I wish right now that all I cared about was just complaining about work crap. I wish that was, like, the number one thing that was on my mind right now. It actually ended up getting worse. The news just got worse, and it went from a stage 2C to finding out that it had spread at this point. And it was literally this time last year that they were like, yeah, so it's gone outside the normal path. It's not in your major organs yet, but it's definitely spread. So we diagnose you as a stage 4, locally advanced, non-metastatic. So that basically means it hasn't spread to those major organs. The next round or stage would be stage 4 metastatic, which basically means it's in all your major organs, and there's no cure, and treatment is basically about prolonging your life as opposed to trying to cure you. So this was, like, heavy, and this was a year ago, and I probably was in a healthy state of denial at that point, and I basically was like, I'm gonna go get it. Like, I'm gonna beat this. This is crazy. This is bizarre and bananas, and I'm gonna be fine. And for the first, like, month and a half, I continued running. I was working. I told work, like, I'm gonna keep working unless you guys tell me not to. I kept, my hair I had for the first month and a half. I felt good. People were like, wow, you're, like, killing it. And I was like, I'm totally killing cancer. I was like, I'm gonna be fine. Started chemo. I was like, didn't throw up. Like, I'm good. And then, like, I don't know, maybe it was the weather and the rain that came in the fall, which apparently you guys, it's already, like, winter here, which I was not prepared for when I got off the plane and, like, bought a white dress. I thought it was, like, gonna be, like, 87. And I ended up basically kind of falling into, like, a hole, right? And for someone who was usually pretty positive and has a lot of energy, like, the light just kind of got snuffed out. And I realized that the only thing that kind of got me out of it was being able to talk with my therapist and talk with certain friends of mine about really confronting my mortality and being like, I could die from this. Like, I might not be here in a year. And the odds say I'm not going to be here in 5. And what does that mean? And how am I living my life? And the ability to be able to talk with people about that, because I couldn't talk to my family about it, right? I couldn't talk to my, like, closest friends about it, but I did have a couple people. And I realized for me that basically I needed to stop thinking about what the future was going to happen, because I really needed to get all of the strength that I had and put it into fighting this thing right now. And that meant mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. I held on to this quote, worry doesn't empty tomorrow of its sorrows, it only empties today of its strength. And I was like, I got to bring my A game to, like, my life right now, and I need to stop worrying about what's happening in the future. And I decided, you know what, like, I realized, like, I have the tools. I've been living pretty hardcore, like my whole life. I have been trying to maximize every moment for my whole life before all this cancer stuff. So all I really need to do is go back to those same tools and just double down on it, right? Because I don't want to just go seize the day, which is carpe diem. Like, I want to go seize life, and I don't want to just, I really don't do things casually. So I was like, I don't want to just like, carpe life. Like, I want to carpe the shit out of it, right? So I was like, okay. So I kind of like turned a corner after, 2 months or so. And, I lost my hair, like no eyebrows, no eyelashes, no hair. I like went into early menopause, which, dear Lord, like it's the worst. I have hot flashes like I'm like 70 years old, like at night, it's bizarre. But I basically was like, okay, I just need to double down on these strategies that I've been doing for my whole life. I don't need to learn anything new. I just need to double down. And when people were like, I don't know how she does it. And they're just like, you're working full time, you're like still running, you're like not crying all day or like hiding in bed. How do you do it? And I was like, I'm just doing the things that I've always kind of done and trying to stay in the present. And so I decided, put it down on paper, and I'm working on a book called No Time to Waste. And what I'd love to do is share a couple strategies from the book that I'm writing that I think apply to everybody. But I especially think when I've learned a little bit more about the sales org and CSS now, right? Changing the acronyms on me. So CSS and everybody that's in the room, I was like, I think this could benefit you guys too. So do you mind if I share a couple strategies that I've leaned on? And I'm going to try this. If you agree with me, so if anybody's been watching Hard Knocks, which is about the Oakland Raiders, so you know how Gruden goes like, knock if you're with me? I love that for some reason, but we don't have anything to knock on. So, and like, can I get you to snap? Can I get you to snap if you're with me? Like, just be like, snaps, right? Like, and like, don't be like, I'm not a man if I'm snapping. Like, give me a break. Like, just snap. Like, I have one boob, okay? Like, snap with me. That's what I'm asking. Thank you. Okay, so, number one, I realized that, if I'm facing potentially a shorter life than I would prefer, I realized in talking about more mortality that it wasn't death that I'm really afraid of. It's like having regrets. Like I have these nightmares where I'm like on my deathbed, or like I know I'm gonna die, or like I had one the other night where literally like the Grim Reaper, but in a funny way from like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, was like sitting in the car with me, and my girlfriend had to wake me up because I was like, I have fears around basically knowing that my time is over and there's things that I didn't do, or people I didn't say I love you to, or things I didn't give 110% to. I realized that it was like, I don't want to have any regrets. I don't want to have any regrets. I want to be able to put my head down every night, including tonight, and say, you know what, like I gave that day everything I had, and it means different things for different people. This quote, yesterday's a history, tomorrow's a mystery, today's a gift, and that's why it's called the present. Today is a freaking gift. I just read this morning that there's a 22-year-old, I think she's Canadian, who is basically, I think, a cross-country skier. She's going to the Olympics, and she died yesterday when she was on a mountain bike ride. She's 22. Like, none of us know what's going to happen. People are dying in Yosemite taking selfies by falling off like El Cap. It's bizarre. You don't know. Today's a gift, right? So the reality is when you think about everything you control, and right now I want to talk about your work life. I want to talk about your life at Glassdoor every day, which is, when you're spending at least 40 hours a week, like it's a large chunk of where you're spending your time. And thinking about in having no regrets and ending each day being like, I gave it everything I had, you got to first think about all the things that you can control and all the things you can't, right? In sales or in CSS, the people who are in this room, there's a lot that you guys can't control, right? You can't control who your manager is. You can't control your quotas, which have probably like changed a couple times this year. You can't control your territories, which like also probably got moved like once or twice. The accounts you get assigned, like the SDR you get assigned. You can't control whether or not we call the months of October, November, and December Q3 or Q4, which again, from the outside is very confusing. But then you look at that little sliver of what you can control, and you think about how can I maximize what I can control? How can I take that sliver and give the most to it? Think about what you can control. You can control the number of calls you make, right? The number of emails you send out. You can control the amount of research you do before your calls, the prep that you put into a QBR, thinking about the best way to structure a POC. You can control like how to learn and develop as a salesperson and how to read up on stuff and become like a master of your craft. All that stuff is within your control, even though it's a small sliver in the big scheme. You can still give 110% there. And if you go, I think I'm kind of good. Like, I got an award last night. Like, I nailed my Q2. Like, I've been running this sales game for like 2 years now. So, like, I don't know if there's anything else I can do to like get better. I would challenge that. Because the most successful people, right, are one, self-aware. We all have things to work on. We all have things that we're really good at and things that we're not. So the most successful people are the ones that can very easily identify, hey, this is the stuff I need to work on, and this is the stuff that like is my sweet spot. You know, 2, they are humble enough to admit that, and they're not the people that walk around being like, my stuff don't stink, right? 3, they're people who are always learning, right? They're reading up on stuff. They like want to get better. They want to like learn from the best. They want to shadow people. They're asking questions. They're meeting with people outside their teams or even outside the company to get advice. And then they're willing to do the work. They're willing to go, give a little bit more, turn it up a little bit to maybe 11. I'm usually at like a 17 or 18. They're the people that are willing to give just a little bit more. I think about a couple people. Who's this? Steph Curry, right? For the last 5 years, Steph Curry, regardless of whether or not they're winning or losing, he's MVP or not, he shows up on the court 90 minutes to 2 hours prior to typically the rest of his team to go through his warm-up that he does no matter what, no matter where he is. Who's this guy? All right, snap if you like Tom Brady. It's very polarizing. It's very polarizing. The other half are like this. I'm not snapping. Not snapping. So Tom Brady, he is known not only on the field but off the field as like a student of the game. All of his coaches have said, you know, this guy just lives and breathes football, not just in the physical sense, but in the mental sense as well. And he knows more about the game because he has studied it and he's been a student. He also is old as dirt when you compare him to other people in the NFL and other star quarterbacks. He switched. I don't even know if you guys know this. I recently found out he actually switched to a vegan diet, primarily plant-based diet, because he thought, you know, this is one way that I can potentially get an edge on other people. You got Serena Williams, who talks about her conditioning not on the tennis court, but off the tennis court, where she basically says for the last couple years, she's been training her tail off from a conditioning standpoint so that she has the endurance to last between 5 and 6 hours straight on the court. And yet she has never played a match that's been longer than a little over 3 hours, right? So the last person, everybody know who this is, because this is a world champion. This is a world champion, a 12-time world champion. This is Joey Chestnut. Snap if you know Joey Chestnut. Okay. Joey Chestnut devoured 71 hot dogs in 10 minutes this year to become the Nathan's world champion of hot dog eating. Okay? Let me repeat that. 71 hot dogs in 10 minutes, which is disgusting. And when the press asked Joey Chestnut, oh my gosh, it's your 12th win. How do you feel? Can you believe you did it again? And he said, actually, I'm really disappointed because I didn't beat my world record of 74, which I got a couple years ago. And he said, I can't wait to get back into the off season and train even harder for next year. Joey Chestnut, everybody, this is goals. So if you guys think that you're at the top of your game, okay, I want you to think about Joey Chestnut. This is not where I thought it would go. But I was more Steph Curry. Like, I want you to think about the fact that the people who are at the top of their game are the ones behind the scenes who are always figuring out, how can I give a little bit more to those things within my control? How can I take that sliver and give 110%? And if you think that you're already at the top of your game, think about Joey Chestnut. Has anybody heard about the term Kaizen? Snap, if you have. Interesting. I think those might be like fake snaps, but I appreciate them. So Kaizen, it's Japanese. Kai means good, Zen means change. And Kaizen essentially is the Japanese philosophy of continuous improvement. It basically says that with small incremental changes that don't require massive shifts or innovation, you have the potential to radically up-level anything that you're doing. And it can be applicable, most applicable, to situations which are quantifiable. Everyone in this room is responsible for quantifiable results. Toyota actually embraced a Kaizen philosophy in their manufacturing and operations, where they went through a process of evaluating a couple years ago all of the ways in which they could do a little bit of a continuous improvement, small little changes that could have massive impact on their production, and it reduced their operating costs and increased efficiencies. So think about what you're doing in your work life today. I want you to think about your role, and I want you to think about that 110% sliver that you could potentially give to. And there's probably at least a couple things that everybody could do. I don't know if it's one more call. I don't know if it's one more meeting. It's something. There's at least a couple things that everybody could be doing just a little bit better, or a little tweak that could potentially have a massive, massive impact on your performance this quarter, like starting right now. So what I'm going to have you do is, like, we're going to Kaizen this shit. Okay? What I'd like everybody to do is, let's see, do we have our agendas? We have our agendas. Does everyone have their agenda? There should be a place in your agenda. That's right. Look at everybody. They do. So if you have a pen, that's great. If you don't, you can also use your phone. But ideally in your agenda, there should be a spot, because you're going to be held accountable to this. And I want everybody right now, you're going to have 2 minutes, and I'm going to time it. 2 minutes. Do you guys see the spot for it? I think there's a spot for it. It might not. Or it's either, you can write it on your agenda. You can write it in your notebook. You can do it in your phone. We're also going to use your phone in a minute for something else. So I want you to think for 2 minutes, come up with 3 things. 3 things when you think about your work life, when you think about your goals for Q3 coming up. I want you to write down 3 things that are small, nothing massive, that you can tweak or do just a little bit better, that combined could have an impact on your Q3. And you're going to have 2 minutes. All right, you got 3? Snap? Okay, most people. So now what I want you to do is rows 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 are going to turn to the person behind you and partner up. And you're going to have 1 minute, and I want you to share your 3 things with the person that's partnered behind you. This is going to be your Kaizen buddy for Q3. You're going to share those 3 with the other person. So that, whoever you were just with, that's going to be your Kaizen buddy for this quarter. You're going to hold each other accountable, and you're going to basically, high-fiving. We're like high-fiving each other. I love high fives. Yeah, awesome. All right. All right, so we talked about your work life. Now let's talk about your personal life, okay? All right, so we're going to talk about your personal life now, because you have a life outside of Glassdoor, right? Yeah, and that's okay. And your managers want that, because the more that you can bring your whole self to work, again, higher engagement, higher productivity. Like, can I interest you in a company profile? Do all the things is one of the things I talk about. So when I'm thinking about whether or not, I'm going to be looking at my life, no matter how long it is, and going, man, I really did it. I want to look back on all the memories, and the things that create memories that actually stick are experiences that heighten your senses, experiences that elicit emotion, and experiences that basically make you feel like you are in the flow of the present moment and basically give you all the feels. For some people, it can be spending time with their family or their kids or their dogs, or it could be cooking or gardening. For me, it's basically, I have a lot of energy, as you guys can see. I always have, and I have been one to seek out adventure my whole life. So the things that I was doing that basically lit me up, the things that get me really excited, the memories that I've created, this was all pre-cancer, for the most part involved being outside, doing something physical, doing something active, doing epic stuff sometimes. And it hasn't stopped. So basically I finished radiation in June, and since June, when I was kind of allowed to be free as a bird again, which I like because I need to ruffle my feathers. I did my first trail race in 2 years, even though I was slow as freaking a slug, but the point was that I did it. We got a puppy who is a crazy doodle. I can have a conversation with anybody at the break about doodles. I just got back from South Africa, where I did a bucket list adventure, a life list adventure with my little sister. We went on safari, and it was freaking epic. And if you can look in, I'm very, very excited. My sister has, of course, zoomed in on that and sent me just a photo of me, exploding. So I haven't stopped. But basically, since I was 15, I've had a life list. And it wasn't a bucket list. It wasn't this is what I want to do before I die. It was just this is cool stuff that I want to do. And if you can look at some of it, I've checked off a bunch, and it goes very long. Some of the things are epic, and I wanted to learn how to surf. I wanted to go wakeboarding. I wanted to one day, ski the Alps and go heli skiing. But it also included small things I want to take my family on a vacation because we didn't have the money when I was growing up for, my parents put money into education and not travel or vacation for us as a family. So I wanted to do that. I still haven't done it, but I want to go to a diner in Wisconsin and have a great story from the waitress and give her $100 tip on a $2 cup of coffee. I want to do that. I haven't done it yet. I want to meditate for 5 minutes every day for 30 days in a row. I'm currently on day 3. I haven't gotten past 7 yet. It's 5 minutes, headspace. It's just 5 minutes. How can I not do it? You can see also this year, I checked off not only go on an African safari, but I also checked off meeting Sandra Bullock, which I put on my life list, no joke, when I was 16 years old. And I met her in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, in the bar this year when I went there after I finished chemo. I believe that the universe will deliver what you want, but you have got to be freaking hella specific and get that stuff down on paper. I'm serious. You got to write it down in order for it to happen. So raise your hand if you have any sort of a life list or a bucket list. Yeah, and raise your hand if you've got maybe goals or financial goals or kind of your 5-year plan mapped out. Okay, so what I want to challenge you guys to do is diversify it. If it's all about basically I want to make this amount of money or I want to hit this job title or I want this to be my career path, diversify it. Include things something I put on when I was in high school, get an ice maker, which I don't think you can see up here. Because I really hated, in middle school, my mom being fill up the ice trays. And filling up the ice trays with water and then carrying those to the freezer without spilling the water. I literally was someday, I'm going to be rich and I'm going to have an ice maker. And I rented a house, I didn't even buy it, a couple years ago, and I was it has an ice maker, and I crossed it off, and I was victory! So what I want you guys to do right now, I want everybody to pull out their phones, and I'm going to assume the majority of people have an iPhone. I don't know anything about Samsung and Galaxy and the Notes or whatever that is, but pull out your phone, and there's an awesome feature like the Notes function, which I've been using a ton, and I want you to entitle it Life List. And you can even see that there's nice little bullets if you want to get really organized. You can choose a bullet, and I want you to just take literally 20 seconds right now and anything that comes to mind. It can be big, it can be little, it doesn't have to be epic. It can be call my cousin and tell him I'm sorry. It can be spend more time in my garden. Which, it can be big stuff, it can be little stuff. But the stuff that you're yeah, I want to go do that. I want to feel that. I want to smell it. I want to eat it. I want to get all into it. Hopefully, you can leave today at least knowing that you are building an authentic and personal connection. You guys are so chatty. And it's early. hopefully you guys are leaving here now having built one authentic connection and just sharing a little bit of your humanity with one other person at work that's not related to your work, because that's what it's about. So spoiler alert, I'm going to die. But you guys are going to die too, right? Sorry to be the bearer of bad news. This is all we've got. We've got today. You do not know what's going to happen tomorrow. You don't know what's going to happen 2 years down the road. We've got today. This is it. My ask to you guys is, don't wait for a diagnosis or a health scare or tragedy or rock bottom to make a change in the way that you look at your life and how you can maximize your moments. Because basically, if you want to live a life that you've never lived, right, you've got to do the things that you've never done. So tonight, go to bed without regrets. Give 110% to what you can control. Think about the things that you can do in Q3. Be present here today. Like, soak in everything that you can. Don't just meander through life and just, go through the motions, right? Do the things. Look at your life list. Add to it. Check them off. Add more things to it. Add stupid things to it. But go do the things that light you up. Don't go on investing time and money in the things that light other people up or appear to light them up based on their Instagram profile, right? Do the stuff that lights you guys up. And then be vulnerable. Be human. Build connections with people at work. Look at your relationships personally and think about, where can I apologize where I've been wrong? Who can I reconnect with? Because what if they're not here tomorrow? What regrets would I have? Right? I don't know how long I'm going to be here. You guys don't know either. I could outlive all of you. That's the real truth, and I probably will. But until then, my ask to you guys is to think about this. It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred with dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs and comes short up again and again, because there is not effort without error and shortcomings. Live your life in the arena. Make the most of it. And the people who make fun of sales awards like I did in the beginning are typically the people who don't have the confidence to believe that they could actually do it. So if you want to go get an award that was handed out last night, go get it. If you want to be a quota crusher in Q3, go get it. If you want to get promoted, go get it. If you want to attack those things on your life list, go get it. Go get it. Don't waste any time. Thank you.